Well, Eshaan and Aditya, thank you so much for helping with my project. Eshaan, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about yourself.
Um, I'm in middle school right now, and I'm gonna be heading to eighth grade. Um, I've been pretty bored in the quarantine, so I think this is a good opportunity to try to relieve myself from some of that boredom. Some of my hobbies include playing video games, biking, jumping on a trampoline, and I've recently gotten into trying to be more flexible and doing flexibility exercises.
And what kind of video games do you play?
Um, I've mainly been playing Minecraft right now.
Oh, excellent. So you like build things and
Yeah,
explore.
mainly exploring. I'm trying to get better stuff before I can build, but yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And Aditya, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a rising senior. We live in Alpharetta, and I go to like Alpharetta High School, and I want to major in mechanical engineering. So like some of my hobbies are like robotics and like just going in the outdoors. So I'm like I'm president of my robotics club, my school robotics club, and I'm also like a life scout working on like my Eagle requirement right now. And yeah, I also like to play video games. Just have some fun.
So you're interested in becoming a mechanical engineer. What types
Yeah.
of things do you hope to work on?
So some things I'd like to work on are like autonomous systems or robots for like different applications. I haven't really gotten that specific right now. That's kind of the reason I chose mechanical engineering is because it's kind of like a broad kind of discipline, and I don't really have I think I have like that much experience, like decide. But right now I'm interested in like robotics and like autonomous systems.
And I understand you're also working on the NASA Lu Challenge.
Yeah, I'm also working on the NASA Lunar Challenge that was like recently launched, which is like where you design like a toilet for like a 14-day mission to like be in the Artemis I don't know how to say it, but like
Artemis?
Artemis program they're launching. Yeah.
And have you all created some prototypes or?
So the thing is, their challenge is like more of like a virtual challenge. So we're creating some CAD designs and stuff to do it, but we haven't like it was launched like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so we don't have anything that concrete yet. But we're just looking at different like how to like because their main objective is to try and have some like a kind of unique system which makes it possible for the toilet to be a lot lighter, like 15 kilograms in Earth gravity. So like it's we're trying to find like some new approaches that we can design.
And what CAD program are you using?
I usually, whenever like I try to design something like new, I like to use like SolidWorks. But for assembling, I up until now I've used Fusion because it's a lot easier, Fusion 360. But I'm trying to move to SolidWorks because that's like the industry standard. So it'd be pretty useful to know it beforehand.
Yeah, I've been trying to learn Fusion 360, but purely because Fusion 360, they have a free license for hobbyists and individual use, but I don't think they have the same thing for SolidWorks.
Yeah, I just use like a school license right now for SolidWorks. So yeah, you're right.
So did you all know that NASA is planning to send people to the moon in 2024?
Um, Before this, no, I didn't. But again, I don't keep much in the loop, so I'm not surprised that I wouldn't know something like this.
And you'd be surprised to maybe find out that out of the like 240 people I've interviewed, or 220, 230, only about 40 of them knew that we were going. So you're definitely not alone.
Okay. So I did know like since a couple of months back because I think Donald Trump tweeted about it and then I researched some more into it. But I didn't really know in like detail what was happening until I started this NASA Lunar Challenge. So now I kind of know about it in detail.
And what do y'all think about it?
I think it's important. I don't have much interest in it, but I do think it's important because I read a bit about it and I saw that they're trying to use it as a test mission, kind of, to see what it would be like to go to Mars and see what they might need and they haven't thought of. So it's definitely important first step.
So what I think about it is, it's so the timeline, of course, which was given 4 years, is really ambitious. But I think that it's a good timeline because lately, like at least for the governmental aspect of it, the government and NASA has been pretty slow and not been that ambitious when it comes to space. So I think that by giving themselves a challenge and really trying to focus on it, we're trying to kick off a new space race. And with the commercial partners that are available, like SpaceX and Origin, Blue Origin, all of them that are like actually starting to design some viable like options for like I think they're designing the landers for this mission. And since there's so many options, not just like the Lockheed Martin that was before, I think it's definitely possible and it would spark a new space race. So I think it's a pretty like I like the timeline and I think it's pretty useful at this point.
Some of the people I've interviewed have had some doubts about us doing it from the standpoint
Yeah.
of they say, we have so much poverty here, and we have like global climate change, and we have so many issues here on Earth, and then of course now we have this whole COVID-19 thing. So they're like, how are we justifying spending the resources to send people to space? And I was just wondering what you thought about that, and kind of how you view that.
I do think that some of the problems on Earth should take priority, but I also think that space exploration is important because at a certain point, if Earth becomes uninhabitable, like other planets like Mars may be our only option. And also, we haven't explored much of space. And if we could in the future mine asteroids, that could be $1 trillion business. So it could be pretty important.
And what do you think, Aditya?
So I definitely think there's always the argument of why are we spending money on this when we could be using it to relieve problems on Earth. And I kind of think like um, there's always going to be problems on Earth, and I think one of the things that we should think about when we're exploring space is many of the technological, because again, space is mostly like the money being spent on space, right? Where does it go? It goes to all the different companies that are developing the machinery and all the parts for it, which goes back into like our own country, and it goes into our different businesses. And then the research that's being done on space vehicles and stuff, it is like it can be utilized in many different ways for like other projects on Earth. So I think the only like kind of money being lost in space is kind of like the resources we send into space. And that really accounts for like very little of the actual cost. The cost of the rocket, the cost of maybe the food and the fuel, that kind of stuff is actually like a very small fraction of the cost, and most of it goes into the R&D and like the materials, which is again goes back to like the economy and goes back to like America. So I'm not sure if like that much money is really being spent on it. And then it's just like another like kind of like any other science research program where the benefits can be like seen in different places, not just space exploration. So I don't really think there's that much money being lost on it.
And when you think about the future of humanity, like looking out several hundred years, do you think humanity is just still on the Earth, or have we actually branched out and learned to live in space, on the moon, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, on the moons of Saturn? Are we sending craft to other star systems? I mean, like, how far do you think we could get in the next few hundred years, or are we just still here on the Earth?
I personally don't know much, but from what I do know, I think it would be very, very challenging to send craft, um, manned craft out of our solar system. But I do think if we continue on focusing a lot of our resources and prioritizing space exploration, we could inhabit other planets, or at least start to.
What I think is so like at the rate that we've been developing technology, in just the past 100 years, we've developed enough technology that would like it's kind of crazy how far we've come. So in a couple hundred years, with like the rate at which we're like developing technology is going exponentially like faster, I definitely think that we will definitely colonize other planets. But as for like like in the next 500 years, we're definitely going to expand because our population is not necessarily going to slow down unless there's some massive cataclysmic effect event, right? So I think that what I really think is like if for the next 100 years, what's it's going to be difficult because what's it's really going to be like driven by is like if of these other planets have like in the beginning do they have resources which are valuable enough to send back to Earth. So it's like kind of like valuable to like different people to go there and mine these resources and bring them back to Earth. And then after a period of time, it'll be dependent on like if these planets have like the resources to keep like a self-sustaining civilization like on them. So if these two like factors happen, I think it will definitely happen because well, like we humans will want more resources, and while like asteroids, like you said, are like definitely like a golden goose kind of thing. Planets are like more stable. So I think as long as there's like the initial like allure of like resources that can be brought back to Earth, and then after that there's enough resources to like sustain people on there, then it'll happen for like these planets.
And you mentioned SpaceX and Elon Musk's company. I was wondering if you're familiar with sort of Elon's vision and kind of purpose for founding SpaceX.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And you know, one of the things that he talks about is actually creating a city on Mars by like 2050 that's self-sufficient with like 1 million people. And in Brownsville, Texas, or actually Boca Chica near Brownsville, he's building the Starship. Have you seen anything
Yeah,
about that?
yeah, I've seen the progress and the explosions, so I'm familiar with that.
Well, hopefully next week you'll see a flight of
Yeah,
150
yeah,
meters or so.
like the grasshopper flight, right?
Oh, exactly. Now, but the Starship, you know, today space travel is so expensive because most of the vehicles thrown away. It's done at a very limited scale. But he's talking about the Starship being able to carry 100 people at a time into orbit, that they would be able to launch it 3 times a day, and that it would be cheaper than any spacecraft to launch because it'd be 100% reusable. And he's talking about building a factory there that will be able to produce 2 of these a week. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, can you imagine like how that will change things? I mean, that's like going. Did you see like the Wright brothers airplane? How like they're just holding on top and it like flies for a few seconds.
I've seen diagrams of it, yeah, like pictures and stuff, but I haven't actually like seen a like I don't think they recorded it, so I haven't seen anything like I've seen the actual diagram of the picket plane. It was like really bare bones.
Now, it's hard to look at that and imagine the 737 or the
Yeah,
777 or the
yeah.
747. And it's hard to look at that and imagine a system of airports and airplanes and air traffic control towers where we could literally fly any place in the world within a day. And
Yeah.
I think we're at that point right now with space travel. I think in like 2030, like us traveling to space will be a normal occurrence. And I was wondering, um, do you think that's true? Or do you think it could be true? Or do you think it's like impossible? I mean, like, where would you kind of speculate?
Um, us going into space regularly by when?
2030.
2030.
Um, right now, I don't think so because, as my brother said, it would be quite hard to even do the Artemis mission in within 4 years. So I would imagine it much more difficult to regularly send out people into space within 10 years. So I don't think that's too feasible right now. But if um, I don't know much about Elon Musk technology, but from what you guys have said, if it does work out, then yes, it might be feasible.
I think so specifically on the Starship, right? I think his supposed plan is to for 100 people to be on board that Starship, right? And looking at the size of it, the 100 people goal for going to Mars or going to any like long expedition, I don't think that would be feasible with like the amount of like resources that the people would need. But his alternate plan for the Starship, where he uses it as like kind of like a super airplane that 100 people go on there and they go through the atmosphere to reach any destination in like an hour. I think that's definitely feasible. And if he can find like a market for it, I think it will actually it'll work as long as like the safety is proven of the rocket. So that could definitely actually happen where within an hour, like a because that's a super like quick and fast way to travel, which can like if you can make it reliable enough. So in that context, I think we can definitely get people regularly going to space by 2030 as like kind of like a business class kind of flight where like if people choose, they can buy that kind of option for like the quickness and the relative comfort of it. But for the 2030 going into like Mars, I'm not sure I would see that as like a thing that most people, except for like the super rich, would do. And like I'm not sure if like even the super rich would like want to stay there right as of right now. It'd kind of be more like a tourist destination, except for like scientists and stuff who want to like research there. So I think that's definitely like a possibility with the rate like things have been like changing. But I'm not sure if like we would see that going like into Mars and like to the moon, that kind of stuff.
And you also mentioned Blue Origin, which is Jeff
Yeah,
Bezos' space company, and not many
yeah.
people know that Jeff Bezos has a space company. But have you heard of Jeff's vision?
I think his rocket is just to I think it goes into space and it's like a tourist kind of rocket that's designed to like give people an experience of space for like a couple like 10, 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. I think that's it, right? Or I'm not sure.
Yeah, he has several rockets that he's working on developing. One's called the New Shepard, which is named after Alan Shepard, the first American that went into space. It was a suborbital flight, and that's the one that he's been testing that you're talking about, the 15-minute trip. But he has the New Glenn rocket, which is named after um, uh, John Glenn, who's the first American to orbit the Earth,
Mhm.
and it'd be a reusable rocket in the same way the Falcon 9 is from SpaceX, and they plan to launch that I think next year. And then a new Armstrong rocket, which is supposed to be able to take things to the moon, but I don't think they're further along on that. And then of course you have the blue what is it, Blue Moon lander, which they unveiled
Yeah.
last year. But Jeff talks about how Earth is like absolutely the best spot in the solar system. Like there's no other planet in the solar system or moon in the solar system that come even close. Like
Mhm.
if you were in the top of the Himalayas, where it's cold and you have to have an oxygen mask and stuff, that would still be like a garden spot compared to Mars.
Yeah.
And he kind of envisions having big orbital space structures where you kind of recreate the planet inside of these structures, and they spin to create the artificial gravity using centrifugal force, and
And these
that
like they like orbit the Earth or
they
orbit
could th- they could orbit the Earth. You could put people on them, and then maybe the entire thing goes off to Mars or goes traveling around the solar system. You know, um,
okay. That's okay. I'm not sure if like the technology exists right now, but that's I guess that's the more like advanced plan if like people actually want to start moving there en masse like to a different planet. I guess that would be possible if like I know like reusable rockets are like kind of they're really like changing the industry and stuff. Like it's a lot cheaper to launch, but it still costs like millions upon millions of dollars per launch, and like thousands of dollars per like kilogram, right? So unless like we build like a even cheaper way into space, like a space elevator or something, I'm not sure if that would be feasible because like the amount of like the materials and stuff required for it. But I'm definitely hopeful for like new technology because now like it kind of feels like another space race is starting between like commercial companies and like America and China and like of different people that are like coming into the industry.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean,
Yeah,
there's as a mechanical engineer, you're needed like all over the industry,
yeah,
so you could go try a whole bunch of different things.
yeah.
So if it was safe and affordable, would y'all have an interest in going into space?
By that, do you mean just into space or like the moon and possibly in the future Mars?
Well, how far would you feel comfortable going?
Mm, if as you said it was safe and affordable, I would want to go to the other planets, but from what I can tell, it would take, for example, to go to Mars, it would take like up to a year at times, and I would not spend that much time in a craft to just go to Mars. So if they could somehow lessen the time, then yes, I would.
So like kind of like the tourist kind of thing. So as if it was safe and affordable. So if it was like the 15-minute zero gravity thing, I would definitely want to experience that at least once in my lifetime. And then for like Mars, that kind of journey would like be justified to me as like if I was going there to research something or like working with the crew or like had a job. But like going there as a tourist, that kind of journey is kind of like not really justified to me because like it takes months to get there. But for the moon, I would definitely go as like a tourist and just try to like explore. So I think those are like the kind of like the different tiers.
Yeah, Eshaan, I mean, talking about being in that capsule for so long, several years ago, there's this group called Mars One that supposedly had all these people signed up who would go on a one-way
Yeah.
trip. I think after this COVID-19 lockdown, just being stuck in their house for a few months, they may completely. I wonder if they would still be interested in going.
And when was this like
It's like
signed?
2010, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they weren't really that credible of a group. I mean, it was just basically marketing and what have you.
Yeah.
But it
So
was, yeah.
like were they planning on making a way to go, or were they just like saying, oh, we want to go?
I think they were selecting the people.
They were selecting the people. They were talking about planning on a way to go, but those plans actually nothing became of them. Like there's no physical anything. It was just all
Yeah.
PowerPoints and websites.
Uh,
Uh,
I think they were trying to like make a show or something, right, to like fund it.
Exactly, like some type of you know, what is that? Where yeah,
Reality.
yeah, reality show. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. I read about them one time, and like it was like I'm not sure if this was like even realistic from the beginning, but yeah, I can't even imagine like the isolation. If you're going like with a small crew, it would be pretty difficult. But like with Jeff Bezos's plan and with like larger craft, I think it might be less isolation if you have like more people. You know?
Yeah, it's like the difference between being in a airplane versus being on a cruise ship.
Yeah, yeah, and like yeah, definitely. Because
Yeah,
you have
the
a lot more freedom to like move around. You're not just sitting there, and you actually like interact with the people and stuff, right?
exactly. You have the shows and you have the swimming pool and you have like the exercise facilities and the food and whatever.
Yeah,
So
and even that you could get bored of after a few months at max. So and,
yeah. But
and on like a small craft going to Mars, I don't know what you could do to.
I mean, Eshaan, what like you watch TV for like half the day, and electronics is kind of like cheap to take into Mars, right? Electronic entertainment.
How
Uh, so I actually had like a question for you. So do you think it would be like I think like the Elon Musk's plan is to use like that kind of like the Starship to go to Mars, right? Even for people. So do you think it would be feasible for like people to stay in like zero gravity, like just in like on microgravity for like months at a time, or would you need some kind of a ship that had like a zone with like a rotating ring to like sleep in? Do you think it's like possible? Because right now I know the International Space Station has like a bunch of astronauts that do that very thing. for like a more regular kind of thing for like a lot more people? Do you think it would like damage the human body enough? Like, do you think they would? Do you think it's realistic to go without like the like artificial gravity kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And the other question is, how much gravity do you need to make it safe for people? I mean, do
Yeah.
you need half the gravity, a quarter of the gravity? Do you need the full amount that you have here on Earth? Oh, you had that Scott Kelly astronaut that stayed on the International Space Station for a year, and the astronauts, they're in like tip-top shape before they go, and then
And
while they're in
had to.
space, they have to do 1 hour of exercise every day. Yeah.
Oh,
I say
And
again.
what happened when he came back?
Oh, I mean, it was a big adjustment thing. I mean, he had trouble walking. His legs were extremely um, swollen. But he was able to adjust and had within a few months he was back to normal.
Yeah.
and how long do the astronauts at the space station stay at the space station before coming back?
I think the average time is usually about 6 months.
I think the person you were talking about, wasn't he twin? And they compared like the bodies of the two of them.
Exactly. His brother Mark Kelly was also an astronaut, but he stayed down here on Earth while Scott was up in space, and they did the same blood draws and tests on both of them to kind of, at least eliminate the genetic differences. They are identical twins.
Oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think it might be easier like the adjustment because like Mars has like less gravity, but I think like people being incapacitated for months isn't really going to be ideal if you're trying to set up like a base in like a harsh planet, you know.
And
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
could you be like they would have to, like you said, they would have to stay fit, like at least at some like a level of fit in on a spacecraft that's meant to go into space for months at a time. Could you fit like a place to a workout area where you could stay fit? Like, would that even be possible?
You can. I mean, here on Earth, you're lifting weights, you wouldn't do anything like that, but you also have like those cords that have different levels of resistance, so you would do a lot of resistance training like that. And then they have on the International Space Station a treadmill where the astronaut wears a harness, and they have these bands that pull them to the treadmill, and so they can practice running on the treadmill. And it's supposed to have an experience similar to what you have on Earth. The thing though is, while you don't have the feeling of weight, you still have momentum, right? Whenever you push your leg out, you still have to use force to stop it and bring it back and what have you. Um, yeah, so you're definitely getting exercises by that.
Is
Um,
there no artificial gravity at the International Space
No.
Station?
there's no they're in a free fall, and the interesting thing is, you know I I think us calling it microgravity or weight, zero G, has really caused a misconception about exactly what's happening when you're in the International Space Station, because the experience that you have is really free fall. Because what's happening is there is gravity pulling on the International Space Station, but the International Space Station is going so fast forward that sort of that arc of it falling matches the the surface of the Earth, and so it's essentially falling around the Earth. So if you were like in an elevator and they dropped you down, you would be floating in that elevator just like you would be on the International Space Station. And it's the exact same phenomenon. The only difference is the elevator is going to stop abruptly, which won't be good. Um, I did one of these weightless airplane things, and
Oh really?
me and my sons got to do the weightlessness in there. And weightlessness felt great, actually. I didn't make me sick or anything, and I can send you the video. It was really, really neat.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to do like a skydiving or like a weightlessness thing one time. Yeah. But Ishan, do you know how like do you know how they make artificial gravity in like those movies and stuff, and how they like just do you know how they do it?
I don't know what movies, but from what I've heard, it's they have to make like a huge rotating ring or something.
Yeah. Why do you think that
I don't know.
happens? Okay. So basically, have you ever like swung a string like
Yeah.
around? Yeah. So they're doing that, but with like people.
Oh.
Yeah. I think right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you could put a little frog in the can on the string and give him like 2 or 3 Gs and see how he does.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Oh. But then why is it so expensive to build? Like, why would it be so expensive?
Because you can't like okay, so I think you'd probably be better to answer this, right? I'm not exactly sure.
Expensive to build,
Yeah.
you know, so that you would have the 0G. I don't know. It seems really simple, right? I mean, all you need is like 2 equally weighted things, and you make them spin around each other. It seems like our difficulty would be in controlling that. Here, where you're standing and you're planted to the earth and you're spinning it around, is easy to control. But can you imagine in free fall where like every
How
action
would you?
creates the opposite action?
How would you control it?
I mean, I think it'd be like one of those like fidget spinner things you have, right? You just hold it on the side and let it spin. Because it's not going to stop, right, in space.
It's not going to stop. That's true. But you know, the kind of like the tumbling and everything.
Yeah.
I think it's an environment that we have trouble really understanding. And as we get into space more and start trying to build these things, I think we're going to learn a lot.
Yeah, I think like another difficulty with that, like compared to like regular rockets, is like you can launch rockets from Earth and they can just go directly on their way to the planet or whatever. But like anything with like a ring or something would be very difficult to like launch into space because you can like just attach it to the rocket, right? You'd have to like take it up and then you'd have to assemble it in space.
Is that what they did with the international?
Yeah, that's what they do with International Space Station. But I think it would be impossible to have like a rocket that has like a built-in ring around it and then launch it into space. You probably have to like attach it in space so that like it's kind of like there's like no air resistance and it doesn't just fall off when it's going into orbit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the International Space Station has given us a lot of experience about taking something that's made up of a whole bunch of different modules, launching them in pieces, putting them together. So you
Yeah,
can kind of imagine, you know, having like kind of like 2 or 3 modules on the end of this big truss structure, and then kind of rotating the entire thing. Uh,
yeah, pretty
we need
difficult. Like
we need a mechanical engineer to figure it out. Do you know anybody?
maybe I get into certain colleges. I don't know. It's college application season right now.
Oh, I know. You know, I have a son that's your age too. He's going
Oh,
through the exact same thing.
what's he trying to major in?
I think he's interested in business and finance and that type of thing. So, um, but the biggest question for him right now is about the whole early decision. I mean, because you
Yeah,
can only do that to one school, and you're like, should I choose like the thing that I really want, but maybe can't get into, or should I choose something that's a little bit below that? But then what if I do get in it and I could have gotten into the other one, you know? So it's
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Always that like hope, that little chance to get into your like really reach school, you know? Yeah.
How are you doing that decision? Like, how do you
Um,
decide?
so for me personally, the schools that I want to go to, the ones I really want to go to, they don't have like early decision. So
Huh.
yeah, they're just doing early action. But then there's like these other schools that I may want to go to, which are like they're like below they're kind of like below them, but they do have early decision. So it's difficult. Like Stanford has like a unique thing where like they'll let you do early action and like they won't require you to like go into college, but you can't apply to any other private college, which kind of like ruins it, kind of, you know. So it is pretty like difficult to like decide whether I do that and then like hope I get in there or like what do I do. So I kind of feel that, yeah.
I think ultimately, you know, all these schools are really, really good, and it's about getting in there and participating to the fullest and learning as
Yeah,
much as you can and developing relationships. So,
yeah, true. You're right.
yeah,
Mostly. I was actually curious, but would you go to Mars if you had the opportunity?
that is a good question. Um, Gosh. I think I probably would. I would like to at least have a 50-50% chance of living like 10 or 20 years after getting there.
Living what? Where?
I I don't want to go to Mars and die immediately.
Oh.
I would like to at least make sure there's a 50-50 chance I could get there and live for at least 10 to 20 years.
Oh.
You
And
know,
then
So you don't want like many after effects of it. You want to prevent after effects.
a lot of people died coming to North America from Europe, and actually, I saw this really cool diagram. This is the uh, the solar system had like the sun and then Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, what have you. And it said a number of deaths, and it's like 0, 0.
0, 0.
And there's like, so many and 0, 0, 0. And it's like, see, Earth is like the dangerous place. That's where everybody's dying.
Yeah, that's where we shouldn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think those numbers have changed quite a bit in the next few decades.
Yeah, it will definitely. At least that's not true for animals, at least, right? We've had quite a few animals die in space.
In space, but not on another planet.
Not their planet, true. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I sometimes thought, if NASA sent dogs to the moon, they'd probably get a lot more publicity than if they send people.
Yeah, but then people would be like, "Wait, why is he not coming back?"
All
That'd
right,
be-
they could come back. They could come back.
Yeah, true.
So
And also, we're talking about other planets and moon, but do you think we'd also want to go to the moons of other planets?
absolutely. There's some really amazing moons around Jupiter and Saturn. Several of them are bigger than our moon, and some of them have really thick atmospheres, and some of them have lots of ice and water ice. And if you look at the moons of Jupiter and the moons of Saturn, there's a lot of variability between them. Lots of things to discover.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially like Europa, right? That's a good candidate.
Exactly, and Enceladus and Enceladus, I think is what it's called. It's like has ice and water in it. They
Oh.
apparently it's like the surface is all ice, but because Jupiter is like kind of perturbing the core, it heats up underneath, and there's like water underneath there, and they're thinking that
Good life.
maybe there could be life there, some type of.
So we are able to see that there's water underneath the ice, but we can't reach the water.
Yeah, no, not directly. The way that we see it is because there's some fissures in the ice, and water is spewing out.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I only know about like Europa because that's like the famous one. Just like there's a lot of movies and stuff about it. I think there's even a horror movie about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think
That-
I think I read somewhere they're trying to develop like a grill or to go through the ice. I think it's like miles thick, right? So that'd be a pretty interesting challenge.
I know. The universe has so many things for us to see and discover, but we're on this little bitty speck. And anyway, it's gonna be interesting.
Do you know, is there any moons that we know of that are bigger than Earth?
None that are bigger than Earth that we know of, at least not inside of our solar system.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
No, I don't think so. I've mainly just been following your guys' conversations because you two know a lot more than me. So it's been fun just listening in mostly.
So I was actually kind of wondering. So do you think there's any like potential for like companies or something to go like mining on Moon or like the Mars? And would you like be for it or like would you be against it?
I'd be absolutely for it. I think the solar system's a waste if we don't get out there and develop it. And I think, right now it costs a lot for us to send things to space, but why should we send things to space? Can you imagine having a robotic system on the moon that's doing prospecting, doing mineral extraction, refining that, and manufacturing things? And so Now you want to send a probe to the moon. You don't have to launch anything to the moon. You just send the plans for it, and it gets made right there.
Yeah, especially like the 3D printing and stuff advances, right? You can definitely.
So you're saying it would be possible to mine, refine, and make stuff in the moon without much or any human interference?
I think we could. I believe our level of robotic and IT and communication and everything, we could essentially build an entire moon base on the moon using material on the moon without a single person and make
Yeah,
it like really nice. And then whenever it's ready, we can send the people.
yeah,
That would be very impressive.
yeah. I think it's definitely possible because, like, especially for like scientists. But I'm not exactly sure. Like, I definitely want to go to the moon and to Mars, but I don't really see a purpose there until like we can like learn to live on there permanently, or like have like a purpose or like going there, some job or something. So I think it's definitely possible. Definitely within like our lifetime, we're gonna do it.
That reminds me of another question. Have you heard of a company called Intuitive Machines or Astrobotic, the two different companies?
No.
So, NASA has started this program called the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program, CLIPS, CLPS. And as part of that program, 15 different companies have qualified to bid for work orders to take experiments and sensors for NASA to the surface of the moon. And they'll select 2 companies a year. And Astrobotic, which is based in Pittsburgh, and Intuitive Machines, which is based in Houston, both won the bids to land probes on the moon in 2021. And this will be the first time that the US has landed anything on the moon since like the late 1970s. And they plan to do this
What
every
about
2
like
years.
what about the space shuttle? Didn't they go on the moon? I'm sorry.
Space shuttle only went around the Earth. Like it never went
Oh,
above like, I think 300 miles, 400 miles.
yeah, that probably makes sense.
Um, Before this, when we stopped exploring the moon, with probes at least, had we explored the entire surface of the moon?
No, in fact, it wasn't until 2010 that we discovered that there was water ice in the poles of the moon. The moon has no atmosphere, and it has a 28-day day. So that means you have 14 days of sunlight and 14 days of darkness. And during the sunlight time, you're like 200 degrees Celsius, and during the darkness time, you're like negative 200 degrees Celsius. But the moon has a 1 degree tilt with respect to the sun, unlike the Earth, which has like a 28-degree tilt
There's
with
no
respect to
season.
the sun. So it doesn't really have any seasons, but I mean, it doesn't have an atmosphere. And what's a
Yeah,
season or weather without atmosphere? But
yeah.
it has these big craters, and some of them are on the poles, and some of them never ever get light in the bottom of it. And over billions of years, comets have hit the moon, and some of those molecules have made it into these permanently shadowed areas. And it's so cold there that they just kind of stayed. And we just
Oh,
discovered this
I think
like
that
in
our
2010,
go to the poles, right?
exactly the South
So
Pole.
how would they power their equipment if there's no sunlight there? How would they kind of
Well, there is sunlight there. It's just in these craters, there's permanently shadowed. But
oh
on the rim of the crater, like on the South Pole, there's places where you have permanently lit
mm,
ridges that are
okay.
always have. So you kind of have like the right combination between the two.
Okay.
Why do you think that they, like, we explored a lot, like some of Mars with probes, and we could reach the moon, so why do you think they stopped sending even probes before we had finished exploring it?
Hmm. Well, I think um, we knew something about the moon, not everything about the moon, but these other places we knew even less. And I think the thought was, hey, let's go take care of the areas that we know the least about as opposed to something that we know something about and want to learn more. And so I think that's probably more. Uh, maybe whenever you're trying to do your yearly vacation, you're like, well, last year we went to Germany. We didn't explore everything, but we've never been to like Japan. So maybe this year we'll go
Yeah.
to Japan.
I
You
think
know?
it's like I feel like I'm glad they did that because like those like Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, they kind of like sent those out, right? And like now we're like finally seeing like the outside the solar system because they've been out there so long. So it's kind of like benefiting us because we sent it out early, right? Relatively early. So like because it takes like 40 years or something for them to get out of the solar system. So it's kind of like it's a good thing we sent it out then so we can use the data now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we were sending that them now, we would have to wait like another 50, 60 years
Yeah,
before they were where they are now.
yeah,
So, and see, that's another neat thing about this. Imagine this, you create this ability to mine the resources and build things. So technology has changed a lot since we launched Voyagers. We've learned so
yeah,
much on how to do things. Imagine being able to upgrade those systems now, wherever they are,
yeah.
just by sending up updated plans.
How could we catch up to them if it took like
I don't think he's like talking about them specifically. I think it's like if we like build new ones, right?
oh okay.
Or are you talking
Well,
about those ones?
I was talking about those specifically. We would send the instructions to them to say, um, take the material that you're made out of and change it like this, which we know is a lot more capable.
But do they have like the capability to like change themselves? I'm not
They
exactly sure if they
don't.
do, right?
They
No,
don't.
yeah,
But imagine if we
yeah,
started building that into
exactly.
our probes.
Yeah. Like we could update it, or we could use like different materials. We could like use like machines, nano machines, or something to update, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
I think
mean,
more excited. Like I'm not sure if like this is even possible, but like a engine that like uses like electricity to do like propulsion. I'm not sure if that's even possible, but like if they did that, they could like keep on accelerating, right? Like the continuous acceleration.
or if you're able to use materials you find along the way, like
Oh
you're
yeah,
able to use maybe the hydrogen that's
loading.
very, yeah, low density around, or maybe you can, go harvest the ice from like a comet or one of these,
Yeah,
objects and
to
just
be
keep
like more
going and
flexible.
going.
Yeah,
But
that,
my question before was like, how if we did send out something now, and let's say 5-ish years later, we decided, oh, we can make it better. How and we try to send a data chip to it. How could the data chip we send to it catch up to it if it had a
no, Eshaan. Okay, so we have like communications with the satellite, right?
oh, so you would oh okay, I thought you would send it physically.
Oh, not physically, no. In fact, today, you get updates for like your iPhone or handheld, and it adds new features to it. And that's all being done on the software level. But there's these things called FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays, that are like chips that you can actually program dynamically the actual physical circuit connections. So, I mean, this is just like the beginning. I mean, this is technology that exists today to allow for you to create circuits on these chips. But what I'm talking about is, think about your house, all the plastic that goes through your house. You go and you buy like uh, a chair or a table and it breaks, or you buy a milk carton and it breaks, and then you throw it away. Can you imagine having a system in your house where you take that material, you put it into your recycling, and if you want something like a lamp or a footstool or whatever, it actually
Yeah,
goes and makes it, and then after you get done with that, you put it back in the recycling thing, and so that
yeah,
same material can be reused over and over again and take many different forms.
yeah. Especially if we like with like the chips you said. So if we like combine 3D printing like with those things, you could probably create like new instruments or like sensors, which would be useful like in case like we find a new way to like send something. We want like increasing data, that kind of thing, right? That would be that would keep the craft relevant even like after like years after it's like been launched, right?
Oh, exactly. And maybe you need a different craft at different phases of the mission. Like for example, while you're in between space, in between the planets, you just need to be able to look at objects far, far away, and then you just need to focus on propulsion. But then as you get closer to a planet, you need to be able to drop probes down and
Mm.
need to be able to observe the planet or maybe some type of sensor. So you develop those things. And after you pass the planet, you reconfigure yourself to be more in line with what you need.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible.
I have another question. So like here on Earth, we use like Wi-Fi connections to like get to each other. On like the International Space Station and all, how do we connect to them? Like, what do we use to connect to them?
Yeah, so there's on the Earth, there's several different ground stations that whenever the International Space Station's over it, they could connect and talk with. And that's how the primary way that we communicate with them. But I think in the future, and there's a couple of satellites that can also help to augment that. So that's the primary way. But have you heard of Starlink?
No.
So SpaceX is working on putting up tens of thousands of satellites that will provide high-speed um, data access any place in the world.
Oh yeah.
And so I could imagine a system like that being augmented to allow for spacecraft to also talk any place in the world. I mean, the Starlink communication is all downward facing, so I don't think they have any current plans to talk to spacecraft. But there's there's no reason why they can't add that in a future version of their network.
What do you like? Okay, so I see. Just reminding you of a question. What do you think are like the ethics of like different companies, right? They're planning to put up like I think there's like three companies now that are planning to do that, putting the thousands of like satellites into the space. And I think it's definitely we have to do it. It's gonna happen anyway. But I'm asking you like, should those companies also be responsible for developing an actual system to get rid of the space junk they create because they're just inevitably gonna create them, right? And right now there's no system. So I think like once those system like those satellite networks are complete, do you think the people who put them up there should be the ones responsible for like developing ways and funding ways to like bring that waste down as well? Like okay, so they're like different ideas, right? Like lasers and things like that. So do you think they should be responsible for like creating the solutions to that?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, everything that's launched from the US has to have an end of life plan. All of the Starlink satellites are designed to actually burn up in the atmosphere once they're done.
Yeah,
But then you have, satellites that are much further away in geostationary orbit. And then their plan may actually be to go into an orbit that's even further out. Uh, it's so-called graveyard orbit. But yes, those companies should be responsible for it. But in addition to that, it's just like everybody's responsible for the litter, but you still see roads with trash on the side.
yeah,
We also
exactly.
need to figure out plans to take care of those people who aren't as responsible and to take care of our uh,
Yeah. So
past mistakes.
I was talking more about like unplanned or like if space debris like crashes and like it's scattered. So like I think the main cost of that won't be like actually operating it. I think it'll be more like developing the system if it's like reusable. So like if like a laser system or like some other type of like like a light system would be pretty cheap to use, but it'd be really hard to like create. So I was like, do you think they should be the ones to like fund it and like create the system?
Yeah, I think they should be. Maybe there's a tax put on every single thing that gets launched to
Yeah,
kind of fund this cleanup thing. And maybe
exactly.
that tax changes depending upon how much effort the companies have put into it.
Yeah. I'm definitely excited for Starlink because then people will be much freer from their ISPs and like the monopolies they have. So hopefully it works. I think they already conducted a couple of tests with it, right?
They have, I mean, they're only the company employees currently have access, but you can sign up now to be put on the list for the early beta over at
Oh,
starlink.com. It's
I
worth
didn't even.
signing up.
Yeah, I think like the current satellites though, they don't have like a way to communicate with each other, right? They're only communicating with the ground stations.
That's right.
So like later when they like put in like advanced satellites which like can communicate with each other, it'd be a lot faster, I guess, right?
And
Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. Um, so right now, I think Elon Musk is the only one doing this. So if this does succeed, it would, since it's such a major advancement, it would probably put a monopoly. He would probably have a monopoly on it. And what do you think about that? Do you think other companies would be able to create another version of it, or what should happen?
I think they already are, right?
Yeah, there's a company called OneWeb that actually has launched some satellites to create a similar type of network. It's fewer satellites. That company actually went bankrupt, but through the UK government and I think an Indian company, they've actually started operations back up. And then Amazon has plans also to create a network of satellites like this too.
Yeah. And honestly, I would like. I think they're doing it through Blue Origin, right? And with the amount of money and capital that Amazon and Bezos has just sitting there, I would not bet against them. So yeah, I think he's been pouring like billions of dollars into his company, right? So they're not short of funding.
That's right. Every year he's been selling $1 billion of his Amazon stock and using that to fund Blue Origin.
Yeah, I think that's part of why they've been able to advance so quickly, despite being like relatively new, like SpaceX.
They're also having that funding source means they don't have to be as successful as quickly.
Yeah,
So I think that's why they've been so much quieter too. It's going to be
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, exactly. Because SpaceX is a lot more flashy, but still a private company, which is kind of like they're doing it more for like public support, I think. But like Blue Origin, they can like focus on more on like long term plans and like they don't have to show their success as much because the because they have like a secured like funding source. But SpaceX has to like um they have to perform and they have to like but as a result of that they're the ones who are like kind of getting the interest back up. So yeah, I think both companies have like their advantages.
Yeah. And I think they're both going to be doing really amazing things in the 2020s and
Yeah,
2030. We would have a completely different conversation about the future.
yeah, it'd be yeah, honestly, it's going to be pretty interesting.
Well, thank you all so much for y'all's time.
Yeah,
And it was great to talk to y'all.
yep, you
And
too.
good luck with college and good luck with middle school. And
Thanks.
look forward to talking to y'all again soon.
Yeah, of course, sure.
See ya.
Same.
Bye.
It was nice.